They say writing down your nightmares takes away their power. But what if writing them gives them life instead? I used to scribble my nightmares in a journal, thinking it was just a way to process fear. But now those nightmares are real, and they're coming for me. It started with a sketch, a rough, jagged drawing in my old notebook. A faceless figure with long, claw-like fingers standing at the foot of my bed. The lines were uneven, almost trembling, as if drawn in a rush, but I had no memory of drawing it. I stared at the page, my chest tightening. Maybe I did it half asleep? Maybe I forgot? But something felt off. The figure's posture, the way its limbs stretched unnaturally, it unsettled me in a way I couldn't explain. I closed the notebook and shoved it into my drawer. Just my imagination. Just some late-night scribbling. That night, I dreamt of it. The room was dark. Too dark. My blankets felt heavier than usual, like something was pressing down on them. I couldn't move. And then I heard it. The soft, dragging sound of something scraping against the wooden floor. Slow. Deliberate. I turned my head, and there it was. The faceless figure stood at the foot of my bed, just like in the drawing. It didn't move, but I felt it staring at me. Watching. Studying. Its fingers twitched, stretching toward me, the tips hovering just inches away. My breath hitched. My body refused to respond. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. Then, I woke up. A cold sweat clung to my skin, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might explode. It was just a nightmare. Just my mind playing tricks on me. But then I saw it. The notebook was open on my desk. I didn't leave it there. I was sure I had stuffed it inside the drawer. My hands trembled as I reached for it, flipping to the page where I had first seen the drawing. There was a new sketch. The figure was closer now. I slammed the notebook shut, my pulse roaring in my ears. I didn't touch it for the rest of the day, didn't even look at it. But that night, the dream returned. The same darkness, the same heavy blankets, the same slow scraping sound. But this time, when I turned my head, the figure was closer, right beside my bed. Its fingers twitched violently now, like they were aching to touch me. My throat locked up. I felt something cold against my skin, the sensation of invisible hands gripping my arms. And then, a whisper. Low, guttural, like 1,000 voices speaking at once, the words twisting in my ears. My name. It was calling my name. I woke up gasping, my sheets damp with sweat. The air in my room felt thick, suffocating. My eyes darted to the desk, to the notebook that I had promised myself I wouldn't open again. But I knew what I would find. Another drawing. This time, the figure was right next to my bed, its fingers wrapped around my arm. I didn't sleep the next night. I stayed awake, keeping the lights on, fighting exhaustion. But at some point, my eyelids grew too heavy. My body gave in. The scraping sound woke me up. I shot up in bed, my pulse hammering. The room was silent now, but something felt different. The air was colder. My breath came out in shallow gasps. I reached for my phone, but my hand brushed against something that wasn't supposed to be there. The notebook. It was on my bed. My stomach twisted as I opened it with trembling fingers. A new sketch. This time, it wasn't just the faceless figure. It was me, asleep in my bed. And the figure was standing over me, its clawed hand resting on my chest. A sharp whisper crawled into my ear, a voice that was no longer inside my dreams. Wake up. But I wasn't dreaming anymore. It started as a joke. Just a stupid, harmless joke. I was at a friend's house, hanging out like we always did on weekends. We were sitting in his attic room, surrounded by old horror comics and half-eaten bags of chips, when he pulled out a dusty, leather-bound notebook from an old wooden chest in the corner. The thing looked ancient, the pages yellowed and frayed at the edges. "Dude, check this out," he said, flipping it open. My uncle used to write scary stories in this when he was a kid. He swore some of them were real. I laughed, taking the book from him. The pages were filled with messy, frantic handwriting and strange, eerie sketches. Some of them were just shadows. Others were grotesque figures with hollow eyes and twisted grins. But one drawing made my stomach tighten. A thin, unnaturally tall man. His arms stretched too long, his fingers almost dragging on the ground. His face was scribbled out, just a mess of dark ink. I ran my fingers over the rough pencil strokes, a weird shiver crawling up my spine. "Who's this supposed to be?" I asked. My friend hesitated. My uncle called him the Scribbled Man. He said he made him up when he was a kid, but sometimes he thought he could see him in the dark corners of his room. I scoffed. "That's some Slender Man knockoff bullshit." "Yeah," my friend chuckled, but there was something off about his expression, like he wasn't entirely convinced it was fake. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I wanted to prove it was just a stupid story. Maybe I was trying to spook my friend. But I grabbed a pen, and right beneath the drawing, I wrote, "Come find me." My friend smacked the back of my head. "Dude, don't be an idiot." I laughed, closed the book, and forgot all about it. That night, I woke up to something scratching against my wall. At first, I thought it was just a branch tapping against my window, but then I remembered. I didn't have any trees outside my window. I sat up, my heart pounding, ears straining to hear. The room was silent, too silent. Then I heard it, a slow, deliberate drag, like nails scraping against wood. I reached for my phone, but my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. The screen lit up, casting a faint glow across my room. My breath caught in my throat. There was something in the corner, a shape. Tall. Too tall. Its limbs stretched down to the floor, fingers twitching, scraping lightly against the wooden panels. The worst part? Its face. There wasn't one. Just dark scribbled lines where its features should be. I blinked, and it was gone. The next morning, I convinced myself I was imagining things. A leftover fear from reading that creepy notebook. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But when I picked up my phone, my stomach dropped. The screen had a message typed out. I hadn't written it. I knew I hadn't. "I found you." I didn't go back to my friend's house. I didn't ask him about the notebook. I just wanted to forget. But the Scribbled Man didn't forget me. Every night I heard it, the scratching, the whisper of something shifting in the shadows. And then, one night, I woke up and found something even worse. The notebook, sitting on my desk. Open. The page with the drawing had changed. The Scribbled Man wasn't standing in a corner anymore. He was standing at my bedroom door. I didn't sleep. I sat in bed watching the door, barely breathing. My eyes burned from exhaustion, my body screamed for rest, but I couldn't look away. Every time I blinked, I was afraid he'd be closer. When morning finally came, I grabbed the notebook, ran outside, and threw it in the fire pit. I watched the pages curl and blacken, the ink melting away into nothing. I felt relief, for the first time in days. But that night, the scratching returned, and when I turned on my phone, another message appeared. "You can't erase me. I don't sleep anymore." It was just a notebook. A simple, worn-out notebook with a black leather cover and slightly yellowed pages. I found it at a garage sale, buried under a pile of old books and magazines. It looked unused, completely blank, and something about it just drew me in. I liked the weight of it, the texture of the pages. It felt personal. The old man running the sale gave me a strange look when I picked it up. "You sure you want that one?" he asked. "Yeah, why?" He hesitated, then shrugged. "No reason. Just don't write anything you don't want to come true." I laughed, thinking it was just an old man trying to spook me. I paid him $1, tossed the notebook into my bag, and forgot about it until later that night. When I got home, I flipped through the pages again. Perfectly blank. I grabbed a pen and decided to test it out. I wasn't sure what to write, so I just started with something small. "I will have a nightmare tonight." I smirked at how stupid it sounded. Closing the notebook, I placed it on my nightstand and went to bed, convinced that nothing would happen. I was wrong. I don't remember how the nightmare started. All I know is that I was trapped in my own house, but it was different. The walls pulsed like they were alive. The air was thick, suffocating. Shadows stretched across the floor, moving even though nothing was casting them. And then I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from the hallway. I turned, and there it was. A figure, tall and thin, its body slightly hunched like its bones didn't fit right under its skin. Its face was wrong. No eyes, no mouth, just smooth, pale skin stretched over a hollow skull. It moved closer, its head twitching as if it was studying me. I tried to move, but my body refused to obey. I couldn't scream, couldn't run. The thing reached out, its bony fingers grazing my arm. And the moment it touched me, my entire body felt like it was being torn apart from the inside. I wanted to die. I wanted it to end. Then I woke up. I shot up in bed, gasping for air, my body drenched in sweat. My heart felt like it was going to explode. My hands were shaking. Just a nightmare, I told myself. Just a nightmare. Then I saw it. The notebook was open on my nightstand. The page where I had written the sentence was no longer blank. There was a drawing, a rough, jagged sketch of the creature from my nightmare. I slammed the notebook shut, my hands trembling. There was no way I had drawn that in my sleep. But the lines, they were fresh. The ink hadn't even fully dried. I tried to ignore it. I convinced myself that I had drawn it earlier and just forgot. I didn't open the notebook again that day. But that night, curiosity got the best of me. I grabbed a pen and wrote something new. "I will find money tomorrow." I figured if the nightmare came true, maybe this would too. Maybe I'd get lucky. The next morning, as I was walking to work, I spotted something on the ground near the bus stop. A crumpled $20 bill. My stomach twisted. It was just a coincidence. It had to be. But I kept testing it. "A friend will call me today." My phone rang an hour later, an old classmate I hadn't spoken to in years. "It will rain tonight." The forecast had predicted clear skies, but by midnight, a storm rolled in out of nowhere. Each time, the notebook made it real. And then, I got reckless. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, and an idea crept into my mind. A dark, dangerous idea. What if I wrote about someone else? Just to see if it would work? Just to see how far it could go? I hesitated, but my fingers itched to try. Finally, I picked up the pen and wrote, "My neighbor will fall and break his leg tomorrow." I felt sick after I wrote it. I almost tore the page out, but something in me wanted to know. Needed to know. The next day, sirens wailed outside my apartment complex. I looked out the window and saw my neighbor being carried into an ambulance, his leg twisted at an unnatural angle. The landlord later told me he had slipped on the stairs. I didn't touch the notebook for a week, but I couldn't resist. One night, my hand moved on its own. I didn't even know what I was writing until I looked down and saw the words, "Someone will die." I dropped the pen, my entire body going cold. No. I didn't mean to write that. I tried to scratch it out, to tear the page, but the ink wouldn't smudge, and the paper wouldn't rip. It was like the words were burned into the pages. The next morning, I checked the news. A man had been found dead just 2 blocks from my apartment. A car accident. Sudden. Unexpected. I couldn't breathe. I tried to get rid of the notebook. I burned it. I watched the flames consume the pages, turn them to ash. I thought it was over, but that night it was back on my desk. Open. A new sentence had appeared, one I didn't write. Now it's your turn. The scratching started soon after. Something is in my room, waiting, and I think I know how this story ends. It started as a game. Just a stupid game we played at school when we were bored. The rules were simple. You take a blank piece of paper, write a name, any name, on it, then draw a small symbol next to it. Something simple, like a star or a cross. Then, you fold the paper and leave it somewhere no one will find it. Supposedly, if you did it right, the person whose name you wrote would see something strange. Maybe a shadow in the corner of their room. Maybe a whisper in the dark. Just dumb schoolyard superstition. At least, that's what I thought. One day, my friend Liam dared me to try it. He slid a torn piece of paper toward me, his grin wide. "Come on, just write a name. Any name." I rolled my eyes but played along. I grabbed a pen and, without thinking, scribbled my own name. Just for fun. Just to prove it was all fake. I drew a simple circle next to it, folded the paper, and stuffed it into the back of my locker. And that was that. Until that night. I woke up to the sound of scratching. At first I thought it was a mouse, or maybe tree branches against my window. But then I realized something. It wasn't random. It was writing. I turned on my bedside lamp, my heart pounding. My eyes scanned the room, looking for the source of the sound. But everything seemed normal. The window was shut. My door was locked. And then I saw it. The notebook on my desk. It was open. I knew for a fact I had left it closed. But now, a fresh page was filled with scribbles. My breath caught in my throat as I stepped closer. It was my name. Over and over again, filling the entire page, written in shaky, frantic handwriting. The ink was still fresh. I slammed the notebook shut and forced myself to go back to bed, convincing myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me. Maybe I had done it myself and forgotten. But deep down, I knew better. The next day at school, I told Liam what happened. He laughed. "Dude, you probably did it in your sleep." I nodded, pretending to agree. But something still felt wrong. That night it happened again. I woke up to the same sound. Scratching. But this time, it was closer. Right next to my bed. My stomach twisted as I reached for my phone, using the dim glow of the screen to light up the room. My breath stopped. There was writing all over my walls, messy, erratic scribbles covering every inch of space. My name, repeated hundreds of times. I jumped out of bed, my skin crawling. My hands trembled as I reached for the doorknob, locked, my window shut tight. And then I heard it, a whisper. So close it felt like someone was breathing against my neck. I spun around, my heart in my throat. There was nothing there. But my notebook was open again. A new message had appeared beneath the sea of my name, written in deep, jagged letters. I see you. I barely slept after that. I didn't go back to my room that night. Instead, I crashed on the couch in the living room, every light in the house on. The next morning, I ran to school and yanked open my locker. I needed to find that paper, to tear it up, to burn it, whatever it took to undo whatever the hell I had started. But the paper was gone. The only thing inside my locker was a fresh piece of paper, folded neatly. My hands shook as I opened it. There was only one word written inside. Found. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I stayed up, my back pressed against the wall, clutching a flashlight in my sweaty hands. The room felt wrong. The air was heavier, thicker. The shadows seemed darker, stretching unnaturally across the walls. And then I saw it. At the far corner of my room, a figure. Tall, thin, its body slightly twitching like it wasn't fully stable in this world. Its head was tilted unnaturally, its face obscured by darkness. But I could feel it watching me. Then, slowly, it moved. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even scream. It stepped closer. Its limbs stretched as it dragged its fingers along the floor, making that same scratching sound. Writing. The sound of writing. It reached the foot of my bed. I saw its fingers twitching, long and bony. And then, without a sound, it raised one shaking hand and pointed at my chest. A sharp, burning sensation shot through me. I gasped, clutching my shirt, feeling something hot beneath my skin. I bolted upright, and just like that, the figure was gone. The room was silent. But my chest, it still burned. With shaking hands, I pulled up my shirt and looked in the mirror. My stomach twisted in horror, carved into my skin in deep red scratches. My name. I don't play the game anymore.